Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Frontier's Edge, watching the stars through the main window. He had been traveling through space for 3 months now, looking for new planets that humans could use. The ship was not very big, but it had everything they needed for their mission. "Captain, we are getting close to the Kepler 442 system," said Lisa Park, the chief science officer. She was looking at her computer screen with excitement. "The sensors show there might be planets here that we can mine for metals and other materials." Jake nodded and walked over to look at her screen. The information showed 3 planets orbiting a yellow star much like Earth's sun. 2 of the planets looked like they had the right conditions for human colonies. "Good work. Lisa, Ryan, make sure our weapons are ready." "Just in case," Jake said to Ryan Cooper, who was in charge of the ship's defense systems. "Weapons are online but powered down, Captain. We are ready for anything," Ryan replied. Amy Watson, who handled all communications, suddenly looked up from her station. "Captain, I am picking up some strange signals." "They are not natural. Someone else is out here." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment every human explorer both hoped for and feared. First contact with alien life. "Put it on the main screen, Amy." The screen showed space around their ship, but then Amy pointed to some small dots moving toward them. "There, Captain. 3 ships, and they are not human design." The alien ships were beautiful and scary at the same time. They looked like they were made of silver metal that seemed to flow like water. Each ship was twice the size of the Frontier's Edge, and they moved in perfect formation. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel Frontier's Edge," Jake said into the communication system. "We come in peace. We are explorers looking for new worlds to study." For several minutes there was no answer. Then the main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The creature had blue skin with silver markings, large eyes that seemed to glow, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the computer translated its words into English. "I am War Commander Thexnall of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. You have entered our territory without permission. This is a crime punishable by death." Jake tried to stay calm. "We did not know this was your territory. We have never met your people before. We can leave if you want us to." Thexnall's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Your ignorance does not excuse your crime. You will surrender your ship and come with us for judgment." "I cannot do that," Jake said. "We have done nothing wrong. We are peaceful explorers." Lisa whispered to Jake. "Captain, our sensors show they have weapons pointed at us." Jake made a decision. "Ryan, power down our weapons. Show them we are not a threat." Ryan looked surprised but did what Jake asked. "Weapons are now offline, Captain." On the screen, Thexnall's expression changed to something that looked like anger mixed with confusion. "You think this trick will work? Powering down your weapons is an old battle tactic to make us lower our guard." "No, it is not a trick," Jake said quickly. "We are showing you that we do not want to fight." But Thexnall was not listening anymore. "Your deception proves that humans cannot be trusted. We will give you one chance to prevent total war between our peoples." The alien commander's image changed to show a map of the star system. Red marks appeared on several locations. "These are your mining colonies and research stations. We know about them. You have 3 of your solar cycles to remove all humans from this sector of space. If you do not, we will destroy every human in this area." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. "Those are civilian colonies. There are families there, children." "That is not our concern," Thexnall said. "Your people chose to invade our space. Now you will face the consequences." "Wait," Jake said. "Let me contact my government. Maybe we can work something out." Thexnall laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. "Contact whoever you wish. Call for help from your homeworld. It will make no difference. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." Amy was already sending the distress signal to Earth when Thexnall continued. "We have intercepted your message, human. You call for reinforcements from your distant world. This amuses us. Even if your entire species came here, you would be no match for the power of the Empire." The alien ships began to move away, but Thexnall's voice continued to come through the speakers. 3 solar cycles, humans. Remove yourselves, or we will remove you." The screen went dark, and the alien ships disappeared into the distance. Jake sat down heavily in his captain's chair. "Amy, how long until that message reaches Earth?" "About 6 months, Captain. The colonies are much closer. They will get the warning in a few weeks." "Lisa, what do we know about these Zephyrians?" Lisa was already working on her computer. From what I could scan, their technology is very advanced. Their ships use some kind of energy source we do not understand. But Captain, there is something strange. What do you mean? Their weapons and ship design look old. Like they have been using the same technology for a very long time. They are powerful, but maybe not as advanced as they want us to think. Ryan was checking the weapon systems. Captain, when they scanned us, I noticed something. They seemed surprised by some of our equipment, like they had never seen anything like it before. Jake thought about this. Maybe they have been the strongest species in this area for so long that they stopped improving their technology. What do we do now, Captain? Amy asked. Jake looked out at the stars again. The universe suddenly seemed much more dangerous than it had an hour ago. We go to the nearest colony and warn them. Then we wait for instructions from Earth. As the frontier's edge turned toward the nearest human colony, Jake could not shake the feeling that War Commander Thexnall had made a big mistake. The alien commander thought humans were weak and scared. But Jake knew something that Thexnall did not know. Humans did not give up easily. And when they were threatened, they became very dangerous indeed. The journey to the first colony would take 2 weeks. Jake hoped it would be enough time to prepare for what was coming. Because deep down, he knew that this was just the beginning of something much bigger and much worse. 6 months had passed since the first meeting between humans and the Zephyrian Empire. Now a massive fleet of alien warships was moving through space toward human territory. The fleet was huge, with 800 ships of different sizes. Some were as big as cities covered in weapons and armor. Fleet Admiral Corvin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator of Worlds. The ship was 5 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy entire planets. Corvin had been fighting for the Empire for 40 years, and he had never lost a battle. Report, Corvin said to his intelligence officer Zarath. Zarath looked at her screens and smiled. Admiral, the humans are running away just as we expected. Our long-range sensors show ships leaving their colonies every day. They are taking their people and equipment and fleeing deeper into space. Corvin nodded with satisfaction. Good, fear is a powerful teacher. Maybe now they understand that the Empire is not to be challenged. On the human colony of New Haven, Colonial Administrator Ben Taylor was indeed coordinating what looked like a massive evacuation. Ships were landing and taking off constantly. Families with children were boarding transport vessels. Workers were loading equipment and supplies into cargo ships. How many more ships do we need? Ben asked Major Susan Clark, who was in charge of the colony's small defense force. Susan looked at her list. About 50 more transport runs should do it. The schedule is tight, but we can make it work. Ben wiped sweat from his forehead. The Zephyrians will be here in 2 weeks. Will we have enough time? We will make it work, Susan said firmly. Protocol 7 is clear. Everyone gets out. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian fleet continued its approach. In the communication center of the Dominator of Worlds, Junior Officer Kelvin was listening to human radio transmissions. Admiral, Kelvin reported, the humans are using very simple encryption. We can understand most of their messages. What are they saying? Corvin asked. Mostly panic, sir. They keep talking about something called Protocol 7 and Phase 1 withdrawal. It sounds like they are abandoning their colonies and retreating to their home system. Corvin laughed. Protocol 7. Even their emergency plans have simple names. These humans are more primitive than we thought. Chief Analyst Mexara was studying the sensor data when something caught her attention. Admiral, may I speak privately with you? Corvin was surprised. Mexara was usually very quiet and only spoke when she had important information. What is it, Analyst? Sir, I have been tracking the human ships that are leaving their colonies. Something is strange about their flight patterns. Explain. Mexara brought up a star map on the main screen. The human ships are not going toward Earth, their homeworld. They are going in the opposite direction, deeper into unexplored space. Why would they flee away from their strongest defenses? Corvin looked at the map for a moment, then shrugged. Fear makes people do foolish things. Maybe they think we will chase them all the way to Earth, or maybe they have secret colonies we do not know about. But sir, if they have secret colonies, why not move everyone there before? Why wait until we threatened them? Corvin was getting annoyed. Analyst, you think too much. The humans are running because they know they cannot fight us. That is all that matters. But Mexara was not satisfied. She continued studying the data, and the more she looked, the more worried she became. The human evacuation was too organized, too smooth. It did not look like panic. It looked like a plan. Back on New Haven, the evacuation was almost complete. Ben Taylor stood in the empty main square of the colony. Just a week ago, this place had been full of people going about their daily lives. Now it was silent except for the wind. "That is the last transport," Susan Clark said as another ship lifted off into the sky. "The colony is officially empty." "What about the defense platforms?" Ben asked. "We are leaving them running on automatic. They will not stop the Zephyrians, but they will make it look like we tried to defend the place." Ben nodded. "Good. Now we need to get to our positions for the next phase." "Are you sure this will work?" Susan asked. Ben smiled for the first time in weeks. "The Zephyrians think they know everything about us. They think we are weak and scared. That is exactly what we want them to think." As the last human ships left New Haven, they did not go toward Earth or any known human colony. Instead, they went to coordinates that were not on any public star map. They went to places where the real human fleet was waiting. Admiral Corvin was pleased when his scouts reported that New Haven appeared to be completely abandoned. "Excellent. We will make an example of this place. Let the humans see what happens when they challenge the Empire." The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack position around New Haven. Corvin ordered his ships to form the traditional battle formation that the Empire had used for centuries. Large ships in the center, smaller ships on the flanks, and fighter craft spread around the edges. "Begin the bombardment," Corvin ordered. "Let every human in this sector see the power of the Empire." The Zephyrian ships opened fire on New Haven. Energy beams and plasma missiles hit the empty buildings and defense platforms. The small human defense systems fired back, but their weapons were too weak to hurt the alien ships. "Pathetic," Corvin said, as he watched the one-sided battle. "Their defenses are like toys compared to our weapons." But Mexara was still studying her sensors, and what she saw made her very nervous. "Admiral, I am detecting some unusual readings." "What kind of readings?" Corvin asked without taking his eyes off the battle. "Energy signatures, sir. Very faint, but they are all around us." Corvin finally looked at his analyst. "Around us? You mean in space?" "Yes, sir. It is almost like there are ships out there, but our sensors cannot see them clearly." Corvin was about to dismiss this as sensor errors when his communication officer spoke up. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it on the main screen." The image of a human appeared. He was wearing a military uniform and looked calm despite the destruction happening around him. "I am Captain Troy Williams of the New Haven Defense Platform. I have a message for your fleet commander." Corvin stepped forward. "I am Fleet Admiral Corvin. You are about to die, human. Do you wish to surrender?" Captain Williams smiled. "Actually, Admiral, I have a different message for you. You should have stayed in your own territory." The transmission ended just as the defense platform exploded under Zephyrian fire. Corvin laughed. Brave words from a dead man. But then something happened that Corvin had never experienced in 40 years of warfare. Alarms began sounding all over his ship. His sensor officer turned around with terror in his eyes. "Admiral, we are surrounded. Human ships are appearing all around us. They were hiding somehow. We are completely surrounded." Corvin looked at the main screen and felt his blood turn cold. Hundreds of human warships had appeared out of nowhere, surrounding his entire fleet. These were not the small exploration ships or cargo vessels they had seen before. These were real warships built for fighting, and they were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The silence in space was broken by the voice of Admiral Kate Stevens, coming through every communication channel in the system. Her voice was calm and clear, like someone discussing the weather. "This is Admiral Kate Stevens of the Earth Defense Force Outer Rim Fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war." Fleet Admiral Corvin stared at the main screen in shock. The human ships had appeared from nowhere, like ghosts becoming solid. They were arranged in a perfect sphere around his fleet with weapons pointed inward. He had never seen ships like these before. The human vessels were sleek and dark, almost black against the stars. They did not look like the bulky industrial ships his scouts had reported. These looked like they were built by a civilization that understood war very well. "How did they hide from our sensors?" Corvin demanded. His chief engineer, Rathek, was frantically checking his instruments. "Admiral, I do not understand it. They were using some kind of stealth technology that we have never encountered. Our sensors could not detect them at all." On the bridge of the human dreadnought Retribution, Admiral Kate Stevens studied the tactical display. She had been planning this moment for months, ever since the first reports of alien contact had reached Earth Command. How many enemy ships? She asked her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Nick Johnson. 800 Zephyrian vessels, Admiral. They are arranged in what appears to be a traditional formation. Large ships in the center, smaller ones on the outside. Kate nodded. They fight like they have been the strongest force in this region for a very long time. They are not used to facing an equal opponent. Orders, Admiral? Asked her communications officer, Lieutenant Kelly Brooks. Give them 30 seconds to respond to our surrender demand. If they refuse, we begin Operation Hammer. Back on the Dominator of Worlds, Corvin was trying to understand how badly he had been tricked. The human colony had been completely empty. The evacuation had been fake. Everything had been planned to bring his fleet to this exact spot. Sir, said Intelligence Officer Zareth, I am analyzing the human ships. Their weapon signatures are unlike anything in our database. These are not the mining lasers and construction tools we expected. These are military-grade weapons designed specifically for space combat. Corvin felt anger rising in his chest. They played us for fools, but they are still outnumbered. We have 800 ships to their... He paused. How many ships do they have? 250, sir, Zarath reported. Corvin smiled grimly. Then we still have the advantage. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the humans. But as the Zephyrian fleet began to move, the human ships did something that no enemy had ever done before. Instead of meeting the attack head-on, they began moving in 3 dimensions using the full depth of space. What are they doing? Corvin asked. Chief Analyst Mexera was the first to understand. Admiral, they are not fighting like we do. They are treating space as a sphere, not a flat plane. They can attack us from above and below as well as from the sides. The human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible. Small fighter craft, piloted by aces like Commander Frank Rodriguez, appeared to teleport from one position to another. They would attack a Zephyrian ship, then vanish before the return fire could reach them. How are their fighters moving so fast? Rathek demanded. The answer came in the form of weapons fire that seemed to bend space itself. Human plasma cannons fired energy beams that curved around Zephyrian shields. Kinetic weapons accelerated metal projectiles to speeds that Zephyrian armor could not stop. The first Zephyrian ships to die were the outer fighters. They simply vanished in flashes of light as human weapons tore them apart. Then the human fleet began working its way inward, destroying ships with a methodical precision that was terrifying to watch. Return fire, Corvin ordered. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship? The Zephyrian fleet unleashed everything it had at the Retribution. Energy beams and missiles filled space, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But when the light and smoke cleared, the human dreadnought was still there, protected by shields that seemed to bend reality around the ship. Admiral Stevens watched the Zephyrian attack with professional interest. Impressive firepower, but their targeting systems are designed for fighting ships that move predictably. Status report. Shields at 95%, Admiral, reported her engineering officer, Lieutenant Danny Martinez. Their weapons are powerful, but not very accurate. Begin the counterattack. Target their command ships first. The human fleet opened fire, and the difference in technology became clear immediately. Human weapons did not just hit their targets. They completely destroyed them. Zephyrian ships that had survived hundreds of battles were reduced to expanding clouds of gas and metal. Corvin watched in horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed around him. This is impossible. Our ships are the most powerful in the galaxy. Admiral, Mexara said quietly, I think we made a mistake about these humans. They are not a primitive species that stumbled into space. They have been preparing for this kind of war for a very long time. The battle continued, but it was not really a battle anymore. It was an execution. The human ships moved through the Zephyrian formation like predators, destroying everything they touched. Their weapons were not just more powerful, they were smarter, designed to overcome exactly the kind of defenses the Zephyrians used. Sir, the communication officer called out, we are receiving surrender offers from 17 of our ships. Corvin felt his heart break. In 40 years of warfare, no Zephyrian ship had ever surrendered. Tell them to do what they must to save their crews. As the Dominator of Worlds shook under human fire, Corvin realized that everything the Empire believed about itself was wrong. They were not the supreme military power in the galaxy. They had just been lucky enough never to meet anyone stronger. Admiral, Zareth said, We need to warn the Empire. They need to know what these humans are capable of. Corvin nodded and walked to the communication station. His ship was dying around him, but this message was more important than his life. Open a channel to Imperial Command. The transmission was full of static, but Corvin could see that it was getting through. This is Fleet Admiral Corvin to Imperial High Command. Emergency priority. The humans. They were not fleeing. This was planned. They have technology we do not understand, and tactics we cannot counter. Send everything we have. Send every ship in the Empire. An explosion shook the bridge and sparks flew from damaged consoles. Corvin could hear his ship's death cries, the groaning of metal being torn apart and the hiss of atmosphere leaking into space. Tell the Emperor, Corvin continued, the humans are not what we thought. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are dangerous, and they have been planning this for much longer than we realized. The transmission ended as the Dominator of Worlds broke apart. Admiral Corvin died knowing that he had been completely outmatched by an enemy that had pretended to be weak. On the Retribution, Admiral Stevens watched the last Zephyrian ships either surrender or die. The battle had lasted less than 2 hours. Her fleet had destroyed or captured 800 enemy vessels while losing only 3 human ships. Casualties? She asked. Minimal, Admiral. Most of our losses were from ramming attacks by damaged enemy ships, Kate nodded. This had gone exactly as planned. The Zephyrians had walked into a trap, thinking they were dealing with frightened refugees. Instead, they had met the sharp edge of human military planning. Send a message to Earth Command, she ordered. Phase 1 is complete. The Zephyrians now know that humans can fight. Phase 2 can begin when ready. As the human fleet began collecting survivors and salvaging alien technology, Kate Stevens looked out at the stars and wondered how long it would take for the Zephyrian Empire to realize the truth. What they had just fought was not even close to humanity's real military strength. The news of Fleet Admiral Corvin's defeat hit the Zephyrian Empire like a meteor strike. Supreme Admiral Vectar stood in the war room of the Imperial Palace, staring at the holographic display that showed empty space where an entire armada used to be. 800 ships gone, completely destroyed or captured. This must be some kind of mistake, Vectar said to the assembled commanders. No primitive species can destroy an Imperial fleet. Intelligence Director Quineth stepped forward with a datapad in his hands. His usually confident expression was replaced by something that looked like fear. Supreme Admiral, I have analyzed all available data from the battle. This was not luck. The humans planned this entire operation. Explain, Vectar demanded. Sir, the human evacuation of their colonies was fake. They moved their civilians out, yes, but not because they were afraid. They were clearing the area for military operations. The mining colonies and research stations were actually observation posts. They have been watching us and learning our tactics for months. The room fell silent. The idea that a newly discovered species had been spying on the Empire was almost impossible to believe. Commander Veltar, who was in charge of Imperial intelligence, spoke up. Director Quineth, are you saying that these humans knew we existed before first contact? That is exactly what I am saying, Commander. The first meeting between their Captain Morrison and War Commander Thexnall was not an accident. The humans sent that ship to that location knowing we would find it. Supreme Admiral Vectar felt a cold chill run down his spine. But why? Why would they want to start a war with us? Maybe they did not want to start a war, Quineth said quietly. Maybe they wanted to test us. To see how we fight, how we think, how we react to threats. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Alan Foster sat in the emergency session of the Human Colonial Senate. The massive conference room was filled with representatives from every human colony and military district. The mood was tense but excited. Ladies and gentlemen, President Foster began, you have all seen the reports from Admiral Stevens. The Outer Rim fleet has achieved a complete victory against the Zephyrian Empire's first attack force. Applause filled the room, but Foster raised his hand for silence. However, we must not celebrate too early. This victory was achieved by our colonial militia forces using older equipment. The Zephyrians will certainly send a larger fleet next time. Senator Carol White from the Mars colony stood up. Mr. President, how much larger can their next fleet be? We destroyed 800 of their ships. General Patricia Hayes, the Supreme Commander of all Earth Defense Forces, stood at the front of the room. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Senator White, may I answer that question? Please do, General. General Hayes activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. It showed a three-dimensional map of human space, with colored dots representing different types of military units. The fleet that Admiral Stevens commanded at New Haven represents approximately 2% of humanity's total military capability. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. 2%? General Hayes continued. The Outer Rim fleet was equipped with Mark VII weapons and Mark V defensive systems. This technology is approximately 15 years old by our current standards. She pointed to different sections of the display. The Earth Defense Force maintains 16 separate fleets, each larger than the Outer Rim fleet. The Sol System defense grid alone contains more firepower than Admiral Stevens had available. Dr. Eric Lane, head of the Human Colonial Research Division, stood up. General Hayes, can you explain to the Senate how we achieved such military capability without anyone knowing about it? General Hayes nodded. Certainly, Doctor. The truth is that humanity has been preparing for potential alien contact for over 100 years. Every colony ship that left Earth carried military supplies hidden in civilian cargo. Every mining operation included weapons manufacturing capabilities. Every research station was equipped with intelligence-gathering equipment. Senator Danny Martinez from the Titan station looked confused. But General, we never knew about any of this. How was it kept secret? Because it needed to be secret, General Hayes replied. If hostile aliens ever discovered human space, we wanted them to see what appeared to be a peaceful, exploration-focused civilization. We wanted them to underestimate us. President Foster stood up again. The Colonial Defense Act of 2287 authorized the creation of hidden military assets throughout human space. Every major colony has underground weapons factories. Every civilian transport ship can be converted to a military vessel within 72 hours. Dr. Lane activated another part of the display. The research stations that the Zephyrians thought were simple science outposts were actually developing new military technologies. Stealth systems, advanced weapons, defensive shields, all disguised as civilian research projects. Senator Frank Rodriguez from the outer colonies asked the question that everyone was thinking. How powerful are we really? General Hayes smiled for the first time during the meeting. The honest answer, Senator, is that we do not know our own limits yet. We have been building up military strength for so long that we have multiple generations of weapons that have never been tested in real combat. She pointed to a section of the display marked in red. These are our newest weapon systems. Quantum manipulation devices that can affect matter at the subatomic level. Artificial intelligence systems that can predict enemy movements before they happen. Ships that can exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. The room was completely silent now. The representatives were beginning to understand the true scope of what humanity had built. The Zephyrians made several critical mistakes. General Hayes continued. First, they assumed that a species new to space travel must be militarily weak. Second, they gave us time to prepare by announcing their intentions. Third, they used traditional military tactics against an opponent who had studied them for months. President Foster looked around the room. The question now is how we respond to their next attack. Because there will be a next attack. General Hayes nodded. Our intelligence suggests that the Zephyrian Empire is mobilizing every ship they have. They are treating this as an existential threat to their civilization. Are they right? Asked Senator White. General Hayes considered the question carefully. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years through military strength. They have destroyed or conquered every species they have encountered. From their perspective, yes, we are an existential threat. Dr. Lane brought up another display. We have been analyzing Zephyrian technology from the battle at New Haven. Their equipment is powerful but old. They have not needed to innovate because they have not faced serious opposition in centuries. What does that mean for us? President Foster asked. It means we have technological advantages they cannot match. But more importantly, we have something they have forgotten how to deal with: strategic thinking. They fight the same way they have fought for thousands of years. We fight the way our enemy least expects. General Hayes looked directly at President Foster. Mr. President, I recommend we prepare for Phase 2 of the defense plan. The Zephyrians will come back with everything they have. When they do, I suggest we show them exactly what humanity is capable of. President Foster nodded slowly. General Hayes, you have authorization to implement Phase 2. Use whatever resources you need. As the meeting ended, the representatives filed out with a new understanding of their place in the galaxy. Humanity was not the new, weak species that the Zephyrians thought they were fighting. They were something much more dangerous. They were a civilization that had spent a century preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful explorers. And now that war had come, the galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped pretending to be weak. In the depths of space, quantum gates were already beginning to open. The real human fleet was coming, and it was nothing like what the Zephyrians had faced at New Haven. The Empire had wanted to fight humanity's colonial militia. Instead, they were about to meet the full might of a species that had turned preparation for war into an art form. 6 weeks after the destruction of Fleet Admiral Corvin's armada, the largest military force in Zephyrian history moved through space toward human territory. Supreme Admiral Vectar commanded over 10,000 warships, pulled from every corner of the Empire, ships that had been guarding the capital world, vessels protecting trade routes, even ancient dreadnoughts pulled from reserve fleets. Everything the Empire could gather was here. This must end the human threat once and for all, Vectar said to his war council aboard the massive flagship Eternal Dominion. The ship was twice the size of the old Dominator of Worlds and carried the most powerful weapons in the Imperial arsenal. Intelligence Director Quineth studied his reports nervously. Supreme Admiral, our scouts report that the humans appear to have only a small fleet waiting for us. Perhaps 200 ships, similar to what they had at New Haven. Only 200? Vectar laughed. They must have lost most of their fleet in the previous battle. This will be easier than expected. But Chief Analyst Mexara, who had survived the destruction of Corvin's fleet, was not so confident. Sir, with respect, I do not think we should underestimate these humans again. Vectar's expression hardened. Analyst, I understand you have been traumatized by your previous experience. But this time we have 50 times more ships than they do. Even their advanced technology cannot overcome such odds. As the Zephyrian fleet approached the edge of human space, they found Admiral Kate Stevens waiting for them again. She stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking remarkably calm for someone about to face impossible odds. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, Zephyrian fleet count is confirmed at 10,147 vessels. They have everything from patrol boats to super dreadnoughts. And our fleet strength? Admiral Stevens asked. 212 ships, ma'am. All Outer Rim Fleet vessels with Mark 7 equipment. Stevens nodded. Open a channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Supreme Admiral Vectar's image appeared on the main screen. He was an impressive figure, covered in military decorations and scars from decades of warfare. Human Admiral, I am Supreme Admiral Vectar of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. You are facing the combined might of the entire Empire. Surrender now and your death will be quick. Stevens looked at him with what appeared to be amusement. Supreme Admiral, I am Admiral Kate Stevens of the Earth Defense Force. You destroyed civilian mining stations and threatened to glass inhabited worlds. You started this war, but you will not finish it. Your arrogance is remarkable, Vectar replied. You have 200 ships against my 10,000. What could you possibly hope to achieve? Stevens smiled. What you fought at New Haven was our colonial militia. What you see before you now is a single reconnaissance fleet. The real army has not even reached yet. Vectar was about to respond when his sensor officer called out an alarm. Supreme Admiral, massive energy readings detected throughout the system. Something is happening. The space around both fleets began to shimmer and twist. Points of light appeared in the darkness, growing larger and brighter. These were quantum gates, doorways through space itself that allowed instant travel across vast distances. Through the first gate came the first Earth Defense Fleet, led by Admiral Danny Martinez aboard the super dreadnought Unconquerable. The ship was 10 times larger than anything the Zephyrians had ever seen, bristling with weapons that seemed to bend reality around them. Through the second gate came the third fleet under General Carol White. Her ship specialized in marine assault operations, designed to capture rather than destroy enemy vessels. Each ship carried thousands of the most elite soldiers humanity had ever produced. More gates opened. The Fifth Fleet emerged, their ships equipped with quantum phase technology that allowed them to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Commander Frank Rodriguez led a squadron of destroyers that flickered in and out of normal space like ghosts. The Seventh Fleet arrived with their planet-killer dreadnoughts, each ship the size of a small moon. These vessels were designed for one purpose: ending civilizations that threatened humanity. Gate after gate opened until the space around the Zephyrian fleet was filled with human warships. But these were not the simple practical vessels that had fought at New Haven. These ships looked like they had been built by gods of war. They moved with perfect coordination, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that made space itself seem to bend around them. Supreme Admiral Vectar stared at his tactical display in complete shock. How many ships do they have? His sensor officer was frantically trying to count the human vessels. Sir, I count over 3,000 ships so far, and more gates are still opening. Intelligence Director Quineth was reviewing the technical data streaming from their sensors. Supreme Admiral, these ships are using technology we do not even have theories for. Some of them appear to be manipulating time itself. Others are using artificial gravity fields as weapons. On the bridge of the Unconquerable, Admiral Danny Martinez opened communications to all human fleets. All vessels, this is Admiral Martinez. Form up in Delta formation. We are going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten human civilians. The human fleets moved into position with mechanical precision. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. This was not the desperate improvisation of the New Haven battle. This was the carefully planned deployment of a military machine that had been preparing for this moment for over a century. Supreme Admiral Vectar realized that his 10,000 ships were now outnumbered 3-1 by vessels that were technologically superior in every way. But more than that, he realized that the humans had been playing with them from the beginning. They planned all of this, he whispered. The first contact, the evacuation, the battle at New Haven, it was all designed to bring us here. Mexara nodded grimly. Sir, I believe the humans wanted us to gather our entire fleet in one place. They wanted to face all of our military strength at once, but why? Vectar demanded. The answer came from Admiral Stevens, whose voice was now broadcasting on all frequencies. Supreme Admiral Vectar, you asked why we would want to face your entire fleet. The answer is simple. When this battle is over, the Zephyrian Empire will no longer have a military. Your 3,000 years of conquering other species ends here. Vectar felt true fear for the first time in his life. All ships, emergency transmission to the capital. Tell the Emperor that we were wrong about the humans. They are not a new species stumbling into space. They are conquerors who have been planning this invasion for generations. As he spoke, more quantum gates opened around the system. Through them came supply ships, mobile repair facilities, and troop transports. The humans had not just brought their fleet, they had brought the infrastructure to support a permanent military presence in this region of space. Supreme Admiral, his communication officer reported, the humans are jamming our long-range communications. The message to the capital did not get through. Vectar realized that even this had been planned. The humans were not just going to destroy the Imperial fleet. They were going to make sure that no one knew what had happened here. Admiral Stevens' voice came through the speakers again. Supreme Admiral, you have one chance to avoid the complete destruction of your fleet. Order all ships to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be treated well, but your ships will be confiscated as payment for the war crimes committed against human civilians. Vectar looked around his bridge at officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. They all looked to him for orders, but what orders could he give? They were facing a military force beyond their comprehension. Sir, Mexara said quietly, perhaps we should consider surrender. These humans might show mercy to our crews. But before Vectar could respond, his sensor officer made another alarming discovery. Supreme Admiral, I am detecting more quantum gate activity, much larger gates this time. Through the new gates came ships that defied description. These were not weapons of war. They were manifestations of pure military science, vessels that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Ships that seemed to be made of living metal that flowed and changed shape as needed. My gods, Quineth whispered. How long have they been preparing for this war? On the Retribution, Admiral Stevens received a priority message from Earth Command. She read it quickly and smiled. Admiral Martinez, you may proceed with Operation Final Answer. Admiral Martinez's voice boomed across all frequencies. Attention Zephyrian Fleet. You now have 60 seconds to surrender unconditionally. If you do not, we will demonstrate why humanity has never lost a war. Supreme Admiral Vectar looked at his tactical display one last time. His 10,000 ships were surrounded by a human fleet that seemed to stretch to infinity. Quantum gates were still opening, bringing even more vessels that his sensors could not properly identify. He finally understood the truth. The Zephyrian Empire had not discovered a primitive species and decided to conquer them. They had stumbled into the territory of apex predators who had been waiting patiently for someone to give them a reason to reveal their true nature. Bektar opened communications to his entire fleet. All Imperial vessels, this is Supreme Admiral Vectar. Power down weapons and prepare for surrender. The war is over.